Hey, this is Cyrus Alderwood. Thanks for stopping back by again. Um, Earlier today, I posted on my Facebook page that I wanted to do a short video talking about a book I wrote called Pot of Gold because it was a very personal journey. Writing that book it was a tough process, and there was a backstory to that. And I thought it'd be important for those that have read the book to kind of understand that because I've been asked about it a couple of times. I've actually written about it, and you'll find it on my Facebook page in the section under notes. But today, as usual, I always like to point out a couple of book recommendations before I get to talk about any of my books. Um, the one I want to bring out today, I'm about two-thirds of the way done with this book. It's a book by Cormac McCarthy. It's called Blood Meridian, and hopefully the glare is not too much that you can't see the cover. Blood Meridian. I got this on Amazon, and I stumbled across this book actually by accident. Um, and on Amazon, there's several different book covers, maybe 5 or 6 different book covers. I have no idea why, but I stumbled across this book because I was on YouTube one night and I was just watching some videos, listening to some songs by the White Buffalo that I have on a playlist. And another song came up by a guy by the name of Ben Nichols. And it was a song called The Last Pale Light in the West. And it was kind of an eerie, yet beautiful song. I really, and after I listened to it 2 or 3 times, I realized this song's telling a story. Thought that was kind of neat. So I looked up a couple of his other songs from the same album and listened to those on YouTube. And really liked them. So I bought the CD off Amazon, and that night I downloaded it to my hard drive. And after listening to the whole CD, I realized that he was actually telling a story with every song. So every song had a meaning, and it was telling a full story. And I thought, man, that is really cool. You really haven't heard about many bands doing anything like that in quite a while, you know. I guess I want to think back to the '80s. I can always think of Operation Mindcrime by Quiet or Queensryche, or you can always go back to Pink Floyd. But anyway, so about I was started doing some research on the song itself, and it popped up that Ben Nichols wrote this entire album based off of that book, Blood Meridian, that he read, and apparently loved the book. And now I know why. I picked the book up, and it's certainly a page turner. It's set back in the Wild West, and it follows this guy they call the Kid, who's not always the nicest guy. I'll not ruin the story for anybody, but if you wonder where you maybe heard the name Cormac McCarthy, the author of the book, he's the guy who actually wrote No Country for Old Men, which is a cult classic film that probably everybody has seen. I will be honest with you, the book is totally a guy book. If you know, most women are not going to get into a Wild West book. I understand that, and it's just not your cup of tea. So I wanted to bring another book up, especially since it's summertime. People going to the beach, going to the lake, going camping, whatever you're doing for summer vacation, even if it's just sitting around on the back deck, throwing a few beers back. There's another book called The Killing Room by John Manning. And a friend of mine bought this book for me a few years ago. And the lead in the book, the character, it's a really strong female lead. And um, usually I read from a guy's point of view, but a few years ago I started changing up a lot of what I read and getting varied about the types of books that I would read. So I would get a lot of different experiences from different points of view. And a great book. And I got to tell you, I read it, like I said, years ago. And if you read a book years ago and that story still sticks with you, that is a damn good book. So John Manning, The Killing Room, and it's essentially it's a thriller / horror suspense book with a strong female lead, about a mansion with quite a history. And she comes in as an investigator to uncover some past family secrets from decades gone past. But it turned out to be kind of a very harrowing story, and I recommend that again to anybody. So Cormac McCarthy, Blood Meridian, John Manning's The Killing Room. Toss those on your summer reading list. And I won't take too much time here because I don't want to give too much away about Pot of Gold if you haven't read it. But I do want to talk about this book because like I mentioned, it was a very personal book for me. Here's the cover if there's not too much of a glare on this too, because the sun is not very friendly coming through the blinds and the curtains here. But Pot of Gold, this is a comedy book. And a few years ago, I started writing this book. This was actually the first time I ever got into writing comedy. And I was in a very, very dark place at the time. And by that, I mean very depressed. There had been a lot of things going on in my life at the time. having a business that was failing, and struggling financially, struggling emotionally, kind of bankrupt with relationships. It was just a rough time, and I was really mired in depression. And on top of that, not to get too personal, but my father was really ill at the time, and he was getting sicker, and he eventually had passed. But I was helping take care of him, and it was just a very tough time where I felt like I had no opportunity, no hope, no future, just mired in depression to the point of what eventually ended up almost what I felt like virtually a nervous breakdown. But it was a very tough time, and I wrote it because I needed to laugh. I needed something good in life to look forward to. So writing this book kind of changed my mindset from where I was at the time, which is a really good thing. I initially had the concept of the story, um, and met with a friend of mine, James Hibbets, who's also an author. He's the author of Secret of Graveyard Hill. That's also on Amazon if you want to look that up. And told him about the story. He kind of liked it and laughed about it. So he helped a little bit with plot development and some character development too. So I credit him on the book as well for his assistance and just kind of actually just being there when you needed to talk to somebody. So it was a journey writing this book because when you're feeling just crushed, and then at the same like 2 minutes later, I'm writing some scene that I'm wanting to just laugh my butt off. So it was a tough book to write, but it was also a good book to write. The crux of the story, to kind of give you a little idea about the plot. For those of you who've read my work, you can tell throughout there's a theme that I love to stick with in a lot of things I write, and that's um, somebody coming from a perspective where they, in a philosophical way, where they need to lose themselves and then find themselves. And I always thought that was a strong theme through a lot of books that I've read. Some of the greatest books I've read, where a character is struggling to kind of find his purpose and meaning and future, what it all is supposed to mean. So anyway, I started down this road to write this book about a guy whose father had passed. And the same day, he gets a letter from a lawyer letting him know his dad had passed and he needed to see him about matters of the estate. This is a father he never knew. He knew of him, but he never knew him. So he had a lot of animosity. He was very bitter about that. Also, on the same day, he gets a letter stating that his divorce is final. The divorce he had, he married his high school sweetheart. So here this guy is, overworked, underpaid, working at a bank, kind of like being tied down in a cubicle. And I've been there before. And not sure what his purpose in life is. He's just living for the paycheck and just kind of, he's kind of depressed himself, coming from the point of view that I was. And anyway, finds out that his father wants him to actually step away from where he's at in this little town and start living. So he makes a challenge to him on a video he left for this lawyer to show him, that he wanted him to take some time off from work and go around the country, and he plotted out where he wanted him to go. He wanted to go and meet his friends and meet some of the people that meant the most to him, so that even though he never really got to know JD that well, that's the main character, Jackson, that goes by JD, he wanted him to be able to at least know his own father to some degree by what he meant to the people around him. So anyway, despite realizing he's probably going to lose his job, he takes him up on it and takes his best friend, who's this kind of like this wild ass guy that you would expect to see in a movie like The Hangover, and they set out on a journey around the country. And along the way, they pick up another character that's a very strong character in this book. Her name's Sarah, and you see JD kind of off on his journey to find who he is, purpose, meaning, all that stuff, to get out of that state of mind and place emotionally where he's at, and actually kind of move forward in life, facing life and living it instead of just letting it go by. At the same time, his friend Pete and Sarah, they have a lot of things kind of going on there themselves, and they find themselves sort of on the same journey, on the same path to what's their purpose and meaning, and what are they passionate about. And these two butt heads the whole book, but in a comedic way, not in a very angry way or anything, but in a very comedic and sarcastic way. And they kind of discover themselves along the way too. And it's rip roaring funny. I swear there's probably something every 2 or 3 pages that I put in there that literally had me laughing while I was writing it. And when I went back and reread it and reread it and reread it during edits, I was still laughing. So I thought, man, that's probably not a bad book. So the purpose of Cross Country Journey, I will point out one thing here. There's a lot of stories that have kind of been around that topic, cross country journey, find yourself, lose yourself, that sort of thing. And one of the greats doing it, Jack Kerouac, who wrote On the Road and wrote Dharma Bums, which I did a brief review of before. But, and I'm not to compare myself with any of those greats, or even Tom Wolfe, who wrote the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, excellent book, about the merry pranksters. But it was, I did that theme because it was something familiar. And if anybody is going to tackle that theme, that kind of cross country journey, they better have that lose yourself, find yourself kind of moment in the book. And I've read plenty of books like that just failed to keep up with what I thought they could have been. And I think mine actually holds up to the test. Not that I'm some great American author or ever expect to be, like some of the greats, but it's certainly a book I think worthy of your time. If you have a summer reading list, throw that on there. If you've never read any of my work before, start off with that one, and that way you'll kind of get a sense of, because there's a lot of me that I poured out into that book through these characters and various places that just slapstick funny. If you don't laugh, I'd be tempted to give you your money back, but I don't make enough money to do that. So I'm on Amazon. Search Cyrus Alderwood on Amazon.com. You'll find it in paperback and Kindle. If you buy the paperback version of this particular book, you get the Kindle version free. So it's kind of a little perk if you have a Kindle as well. It's $9.95 in paperback, $3.99 in Kindle. I try to keep everything under $10. We all work too hard for our money. And writing this book, one of the things that stuck out in my head, especially with these characters and then the purpose and the story itself, was a quote. I think it was from Mark Twain, and it goes something like this: they're the two most important days in your life. It's the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And that is the theme that I try to tackle, the question I try to tackle with these characters in a slapstick, funny way, as they take a journey cross country and try not to get killed along the way. So it's funny as can be. Check it out. Thanks again for your time. The videos are running a little long, but I did want to kind of go through that explanation. Thanks for sticking out with the video. If you've read Pot of Gold or any of my other work, I do ask that you jump on Amazon.com and leave me an honest ranking and comment, so that helps other readers. The more rankings and comments I get, the more it helps me out as well as an independent writer. So thanks again for your time. Have a great night, and I'll be back with another video and book recommendation soon. Have a good night.